Let us try to solve a very nice question over here. Which among the following is an example of catabolism? Catabolism, that means you understand we are talking about metabolism, two types, anabolism, catabolism, right? Okay, we'll come to the actual answer. Just let's look into the options. Is it respiration, photosynthesis, glycogenesis? Or do you think it's both B and C, that is both photosynthesis and glycogenesis? Well, let's do a small discussion for this question. So, the metabolism, or rather the chemical reactions, can be of two different types, catabolic and anabolic. Catabolic means kata. Relate that word with cut. If you cut something big, it will become small. Smaller particles will be formed. And anabolism is reverse of catabolism. That means smaller, simpler particles join to form larger, complex molecules, right? Okay. See, catabolism is the breakdown of complex substances, bigger substances, into simpler ones, simpler particles, and releasing energy. On the other hand, anabolism is the process of building up of complex materials, complex substances from simple organic molecules. Okay, so from simple organic molecules, complex molecules are formed. Simple inorganic molecules, complex molecules are formed if you're talking within the cell using energy. So that's anabolism. Great. Now, if I talk about the respiration, there was an option, respiration, right? Aerobic respiration, if I specifically talk about, where the carbohydrate, rather glucose, it gets broken down and releases energy in the form of ATP. ATP is the energy currency, you know. Therefore, it is a catabolic process. That means glucose is broken down. Fine. Glucose has to be broken down, that is, glucose is a bigger molecule. Rather, I can consider carbohydrate is a bigger molecule, and carbohydrate is broken down into glucose. Glucose is further broken down so as to release energy. So respiration is a catabolic process. Cut, right? Photosynthesis, I'm sure you know this. It's simple. Carbon dioxide, water, these are used along with chlorophyll and sunlight. What does plant synthesize? They synthesize what? Glucose, yes, the carbohydrate, and also releases oxygen as a byproduct. Fine. That means it's an anabolic process. It is synthesizing. Raw materials are put together to form a bigger molecule, larger molecule. It's synthesis. It's creating something. It's building something. So it's an anabolic process. Glycogenesis, on the other hand, you may not know this right now, but you're going to study extensively in your syllabus. Glycogenesis is a synthesis of, not study of, sorry, you're going to study it, but glycogenesis is a synthesis of glycogen. Yes, it is also an anabolic process because glycogen is being synthesized, so something is being formed. So it's an anabolic process. Correct? What would be the right answer? It's what? Respiration. Fine. Photosynthesis is anabolic, so it's incorrect. We have to find which of the following is an example of catabolism. Respiration is catabolism, bigger molecules broken down to form smaller molecules, and in the process energy is released. Photosynthesis, something is being built. Glycogenesis, also something is being built. So these are anabolic processes. Of course, D is not the correct answer. So the correct answer to this question is respiration, that is option A. Let us try to answer this particular question. Which among the following are exceptions to the characteristic all living things reproduce? Okay, all living things reproduce. Do you think it is correct and applicable for all living organisms? No, right? Let's see the options. Mules, worker bees, slime molds, both A and B. That means mules and worker bees. What should be the answer? Let's start the discussion. So, reproduction, it's a characteristic feature of the living organism, but it's not the defining characteristic feature of the organism because, see, some living things may be sterile and are unable to reproduce. Examples, the worker bees, mules, even if I talk about human beings, infertile couples, they cannot reproduce, right? But they are living organisms. Yes. So, these are exceptions to the rule. All living things reproduce. Hence, what would you say? You'll say that the living things, they reproduce. Reproduction is a characteristic feature of the living organism, no doubt about that. But reproduction is not the defining characteristic feature of the living organisms, right? Okay, great. So the answer would be both A and B. Fine. So what did we have there? Both A and B. Mules and worker bees. So option D would be the right answer. Correct. Yes. So although reproduction is a characteristic of living things, living organisms, not all are fertile and comply to that trait. Sterility, that means inability to reproduce, is seen in many things, many living things, and hence does not comply with that characteristic feature. Fine. Both the mules and the worker bees are sterile by nature and hence do not comply with the characteristic that all living things reproduce. Great. So you understand about the fact that reproduction is a characteristic feature of the living organism, but what? But reproduction is not the defining feature of living things. This is a very interesting question that we are going to solve now. Reproduction is synonymous with growth in what? Is it hydra, human, bacteria, planaria? What do you think the answer should be? See, it's very conceptual. Reproduction is synonymous with growth. That means if something is growing, that means it's reproducing. Is it true for us? Well, it's not true. Human will not be the right answer. Let's try to explain it. Reproduction is equivalent to growth for unicellular organisms, for example, the bacteria. This is only for unicellular organisms, and how and why is it? You see, first you have to understand one thing. Growth, for example, I have grown, right? My height has grown. My organs have grown. Why? Because of cell division. Simple, the process of cell division. It's simple. In fact, all the organisms grow by cell division. Cells has to divide. Mass of cells will form. Then only they will grow. That's logical. But every time the cell is dividing, that does not mean that the organism is reproducing. Here you have to figure out the difference. Look, if I take out one cell from my body and give it to you, that is not an organism. You know why? That's a simple living cell. But all the millions and trillions of cells in my body together becomes me, becomes the organism, becomes the human being. So the organism is this whole body. Okay, I'm an organism, you are an organism. But one cell from our body is not an organism, it's just a living cell. But this is only the case for the multicellular organism. But if you talk about the unicellular organism, think about it. Okay, see this animation over here. One cell, it's an organism. It is a self-sufficient organism, right? So if the cell is dividing, it forms two daughter cells, two new cells. It has grown and it has divided. So it's just for the unicellular organisms that growth and reproduction are synonymous. You have to understand this and remember this, right? So the answer would be bacteria. So among all our options, the correct answer is bacteria. So bacteria, prokaryotes, they grow and reproduce by binary fission. This is the most predominant way in which bacteria reproduces. There are other ways also. You're going to study about it in some other chapter. So bacteria, they predominantly reproduce by the process of binary fission. Simple process where the cell grows and it pinches off and two daughter cells are formed. That's binary fission. So in unicellular organisms, there is no elaborate mechanism for reproduction. The cell undergoes simple binary fission, and growth in such unicellular forms is just the formation of new cell after binary fission. But if you talk about multicellular organisms, growth is by mitosis. The cells divide just simply by mitosis. But if you talk about sexual reproduction, it happens with the gamete formation, and that is by meiosis. You're going to study this in the chapter cell division. Fine? So you understand? It's just for unicellular organisms. So the answer would be bacteria for this question. Let us try to answer this particular question over here. The herbarium sheets carry a label providing information about, okay, so we are talking about herbarium sheets, and what does the label in the herbarium sheet provide information about? Is it date and place, botanical name, collector's name, or all of the above? That means all of these three. What should be the right answer? So in order to answer this, let us discuss about these herbarium sheets. So what are these herbarium sheets? Let's discuss it. These are sheets where the plant specimens are stored. This is one of the examples of taxonomical aids. Yes. So plant specimens are stored over here. Well, you can do this at your home itself. I'll tell you how. Take two plain sheets of paper, and well, you can take A4 sheets also. You can take newspapers. I'll suggest you take newspapers. Okay. Well, what you have to do is take some plant specimens, either a part of the plant, maybe a flower, or as I have shown here in this diagram, right? You can take a branch having the flower. You have to press it properly. First spread it, then press it properly and put some weights. After a few days, you'll see that it has dried up. It has absolutely become crisp and dried up, right? Now, then you have to stick it on a piece of paper and write over here, right? So lower right hand bottom corner, you have to write few informations. Fine. Well, I told you that you can prepare it at your home, but generally and scientifically speaking, herbarium sheets are very specific. They are specified. There is a proper dimension. The general dimension which is used is 42 centimeters by 29 centimeters. This is the general convention or dimension that is followed throughout the world. But at times there are some in which there is slight variations in the dimensions, but this is the general dimension which is used as herbarium sheets. And these sheets are specialized sheets, and they act as blotting papers. Fine. Okay, great. Now what does it have? They have all of the above, that is date and place from where it has been collected, when it has been collected, who has collected it, the collector's name. So if you are collecting, your name should also be there. The botanical name is also there. Fine. So basically the answer would be all of the above is the right answer. Option D. Let us see. Yes, we are correct. So herbariums are a storehouse of collected plant specimens that are dried, pressed and preserved on sheets. The herbarium sheets carry a label. I told you where the label should be. And it provides information about date and place of collection, English, local and botanical names. Right? The family, the collector's name and few other details. Herbariums, they serve as storehouse of information about these plant specimens and used in the taxonomic studies. So you understand about herbarium? So the answer would be all of the above. Let us solve this question, and let me tell you, this is a pretty tricky question. Each taxonomic category in the hierarchy of classification is also called what? Genus, kingdom, category or taxon. Well, what should be the answer? To answer this, you should be aware of this particular triangle is the taxonomic triangle, also known as the taxonomic hierarchy or the taxonomic categories. Well, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Now these what you're seeing are what? These are the ranks. These are often referred to as the categories also. Categories, they represent the ranks in this hierarchy. Okay. So for example, in this, if I represent this triangle in this inverted triangle as an inverted triangle, then kingdom will occupy the highest rank in this taxonomic category, in this taxonomic hierarchy. Fine. So they represent the ranks. Now, you know what? In these categories, taxon are the real biological objects which is assigned to each of these categories. Taxon are the real biological objects that are assigned to these categories. For example, kingdom includes kingdom Animalia, Animalia, Plantae. So these are taxons. Fine. Now come back to the question. Genus, kingdom, these are ranks. These are some names of the ranks. So it's not correct. So taxonomic category is not also called genus or kingdom. They include these. Now the answer would be between category and taxon. Which one is the right one? Now see, taxonomic category would also not be called category again. It's called taxonomic category. It is also synonymously at times referred to as the taxon. Option D is the correct answer. But you have to know the actual differences, because there are certain differences. As I told you, these represent the rank, like kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. These all are the ranks. Now within this, the taxons are assigned. Taxons are the real biological objects like plantae, animalia, vertebrates. So these are the taxons. Fine? Okay, great. So option D will be the correct answer for this question. Let's solve this question. The actual count of habitat and distribution of plants of a given area is provided by what? Is it flora, manuals, monographs, or catalogs? Let's talk about all of these options first. What are catalogs? These are listing of all the species organized in an order. Okay. Monographs, on the other hand, contain information of one taxon and which is present globally. One taxon which is present globally. Remember it. Manuals, these are useful for providing information for identification of names of species found in a particular area. The catalogs, manuals, these are mostly for a particular area. Monographs are about a taxon which is found globally. Now, the answer would be, let's see the question once more. Actual count of habitat and distribution of plants of a given area. Just plants. It's flora. Yes. Fine. So these are all flora, manual, monographs, and catalogs are some other means to help in correct identification of organisms. Fine. If you talk about flora specifically, contains the actual count of habitat and distribution of plants in a given area of a particular area. Okay. These provide the index to the plant species found in a particular area. As I told you, manuals are useful in providing information for identification of names of species found in an area. Okay. Different species, different organisms. Monographs, on the other hand, of one taxon globally. Catalogs, listing of all the species organized in a particular order. They are usually in the alphabetical order. Fine, it helps in listing of the organisms. But flora is specifically for the plants that are found in a particular area. Well, so flora is the correct answer for this question.